wanted to come on here and talk a bit more about mental health and specifically some of the struggles that I've gone through in my life as a person, because we have Thankmas coming up on December 6th. Tickets are on sale. You can go get them. And that's partly why I'm here, is to try and promote that and sell more tickets and get more people in and raise more awareness for it so we can raise more money for charity. But also, I wanted to open up the conversation about mental health a bit more and share some of the stuff that I've been through. A lot of times people see other people in positions of success and they think that, oh, they must have it all, or they've achieved success, and I'm struggling quite a bit. But I think a lot of people come to me with their stories about their lives because I've talked about the struggles that I've been through in my life. I don't know, maybe encourage other people to kind of talk about their own struggles, not only in the comments of this video, feel free to vent all you want, like other YouTubers and other people of influence and other people who are in these positions where I think talking about mental health can have huge knock-on effects positively for people. I personally gravitate towards people who are able to be vulnerable, who are able to be open and transparent and honest and talk about the stuff they've been through, but not really let it define who they are as people. And I try and live my life that way as well. I've been going to therapy now for the last 2 years very frequently, like at least once a week. And I think it's had a huge influence on me as a person and trying to view myself differently and trying to go easier on myself. And a lot of the struggles that I've been through as a kid and things like that I didn't realize I had gone through. In 2017, I talked about having the worst year of my life and having some of the biggest mental health struggles that I've ever had. And I think mainly I started getting my confidence sort of shook because of different things that had happened that year publicly. In like 2014 to 2016, I think that was probably the biggest years of my career in terms of like growth, relevance, people tuning in, the amount of people who were just so enamored with the Jacksepticeye channel and would just do anything to watch it and come home every day from school and watch it so much, or college or work. I feel like those are probably the golden years of probably just gaming on YouTube in general. 2017, I felt like a lot of stuff was starting to shift, and I personally didn't really know what I was doing and where I was going, and I struggled a lot with my identity. I realized that I was doing YouTube so vigorously for so long that I was starting to get a bit burnt out in it, and I needed to take some more breaks for myself. But in taking breaks, you stop the treadmill that you've been on. A lot of people were watching me because they've just done it all the time, and when you kind of put a stop on that, they realize, oh man, I realized that I don't even want to watch this anymore, and they don't really come back after that. Totally fine. That's how humans work. But for me as a person, I didn't really know how to deal with any of that. I didn't know how to take breaks. I didn't know where I fit in the YouTube landscape anymore. And I was pushing myself through a lot of stuff to just do. I was just doing. And I wasn't happy with my life. I was in a relationship that I wasn't happy with that was very bad for my mental health. It's done. That relationship's over. We can move on. I want to be able to talk about things openly without people having to start throwing stones in my defense in any different direction. That's not what this community's ever been about. There was a lot of stuff like that where being in a relationship that was bad for me mentally, being in a position that I was in career-wise that was kind of bad for me mentally, sort of forcing my way through things without thinking. That was the first time where I ever had to like wrestle with who I was and what was happening with me, and people's sort of opinions and ideas around me changed. And it was quite hard for me to figure that out. I'm such a people pleaser person that when any sort of dissent comes my way, I have like younger child, neglectful parent rejection sensitivity. My barriers go up. I start making jokes to try and figure out why people don't like me. And I have a really hard, or at least I used to have a much harder time with people not liking me. And in 2017, a lot of that came to a head where at the end of the year during Christmas, I was alone purposefully. Like I could have been around more people if I wanted to be, but I wanted to figure out like, okay, end of the year, I want to know who I am and what I'm doing. And I want to be by myself, and I just want to think and figure things out. I remember especially over the Christmas period, that's usually the time when people are together more. And I wanted to see if I could weather that alone, because I realized that I never really tried to be by myself more and kind of like treat myself as a friend. I had never done that before, and like sit by yourself and your own thoughts and see what they were actually saying to you instead of filling it with work and other people. That was probably the roughest time ever, because I was trying to fill my time with games, and I was playing a lot of Persona 5 which, great game, by the way. I was playing that at one point and I just paused and I was kind of like sitting there and I bawled my eyes out. I didn't know if people even cared about me. I started thinking about suicide for the first time in my life. I mean, not the first time, but this was the first time that I legitimately thought about it as a thing for me. Like, I thought about the act of doing it and everything. And I caught myself in that moment and realized that that's like the first time that that's ever happened. I realized that something's wrong. That I didn't really entertain that for that long, but it was the first time in my life where I was like, would people even miss me if I was gone? And that sort of set off alarm bells in my head that wasn't normal for me. I'd never really thought that as seriously as that before. So that was where the sort of PMA stuff was born from in all of 2018, because that was going to be my mantra, to kind of treat myself better, not sweat smaller things, and try and be a bit more positive towards myself. But I wanted to have sort of a mantra for myself to kind of like help me get through the day and be a bit more optimistic about things, because it's easy to sort of dwell in that negative space and then not know what to do with it. And I definitely got to like my rock bottom. After that, I really made a concerted effort to kind of like figure myself out and to work on myself and to try and go easier on myself. Didn't work. It wasn't until probably last year or this year that I feel like I finally started cutting myself some slack. I've got a much better, healthier relationship with my channel and my work and just my personal life, and I've started to value different things a bit more. But it's still a struggle all the time. I mean, I live here in Brighton and we have some people that we can hang out with, like PJ and Sophie are always around as good friends. But I used to have so many more friends who lived in Brighton, and now they all kind of moved away, which again is fine. They're allowed to do that. But I realized how lonely I started to get. And I watched a video one time talking about like male loneliness in your 30s. And apparently that's a big thing for a lot of men when they hit 30 to kind of like reevaluate their lives. And for me, it definitely was a case of figuring out where I fit in things. Some friendships that I had weren't what I thought they were. They weren't as good as I thought they were. And I felt sort of discarded and devalued as a person. And I'm also someone who will put the blame entirely on myself for that in those moments. And then just be like, well, clearly there's something wrong with me because more people don't want to hang out with me, or trying to like keep friendships that are online only is very difficult for me because I just don't like doing that. I need that face-to-face personal connection. I think going through COVID, there was a lot of people who were going through the same situation where they were all locked inside and we couldn't go anywhere. And I felt like, oh, we're all sort of going through the same thing, and it made it a bit easier. But after that, when the world started opening up again and everyone was hanging out with each other again, I kind of like sat around and I'm like, I don't have that many like close friendships that I can kind of like lean on to talk to people. And that kind of scared me, because then I like lean more into YouTube and you guys as an audience. And that's also not that healthy for me to do. And I still kind of struggle with it. I get pretty lonely like very often. And I've started to like notice some of the patterns in like the relationships I have with other men, and the kind of like, I'm kind of like still seeking out big brothers because I feel like my brothers weren't really there for me as much as I wanted when I was younger. Or like, I'm a person who really likes connecting with other people, but I don't have much opportunity to do that in the position that I'm in, like here where I live now. And it takes quite a considerable amount of effort to make it happen, which is also energy that I don't have most of the time, because if you're depressed and you have ADHD, your brain is not really working the way you want it to. I'm also getting a test for autism next week because I'm pretty sure I'm also autistic, which makes it harder for me to kind of like retain friendships, because it could be ADHD as well, but I also feel like I'm a very like out of sight, out of mind, and then it's difficult to describe, but it's a lot of the stuff that I'm doing work on myself for. But in the last couple of years, I've opened up some wounds that I didn't know were there, and I've picked at some scabs emotionally to try and like get to the depths of why I feel certain things and why I am the way I am. And it's been quite uncomfortable to do that. And sometimes I'll leave therapy and I'll just be so drained that I won't be able to do anything for the rest of the day. I left therapy 2 weeks ago, and I was talking about a particularly difficult subject, which again is also difficult for me because sometimes I can't talk about the things publicly because it involves other people that will start turning into something that I don't want it to. And it's very difficult for me to not be able to like be honest and not be truthful and not kind of like speak my mind when I'm kind of like, when I have to put the safety on or I have to be like dumbed down or muted a bit. I have a difficult time with that. It's also something I'm trying to like learn to deal with. But when I left therapy like 2 weeks ago, I left and I was like, I think that was a good session. We talked about a lot of good stuff, and I just left and met up with Evelyn afterwards, and I just bawled my eyes out. And it was just like such a release that I like said stuff that I didn't really say out loud before. It just felt really healthy to do that. Like you have to go through a lot of the difficult stuff to kind of come out the other side a bit better. And I'm not saying any of this stuff to sort of paint myself in a victim light, or I'm not trying to like put pity on myself or anything. I think anybody that's watched me for any length of time knows that I don't view myself that way or try not to. I'm talking about this because I'm trying to be as vulnerable as I can be. Show myself warts, blisters and all. I still have a hard time with myself mentally 24/7. My brain is always working, trying to figure out what other people are thinking, overanalyzing other people, overanalyzing myself, picking up everything in my environment all around me all the time. Again, another reason why I'm getting checked for autism. My brain is just so busy all the time that most of the time I have a hard time just getting through the day. As healthy as I'm trying to be and as much better as I am now compared to what I was a few years ago, it's still a struggle, but I've just gotten better at now kind of like knowing my boundaries and my limits where I can sort of pump the brakes, take some time for myself and just level out instead of overloading myself. And I'm someone who's in a very fortunate position that I can do that. I can wake up someday and be like, I don't want to work today. Not everybody has that. It's very, very difficult to be someone who has mental health problems and you have to go to a 9 to 5 all the time. I can't imagine how difficult that is for some people. As someone who's never really had a 9 to 5 job, I got very lucky with YouTube early on and it worked out and I worked hard at it, but let's face it, I've never really worked a 9 to 5 job like most people have, so it's difficult. And a lot of people just don't want to hear it. There's probably a ton of people who've watched this video now who are kind of like rolling their eyes or turned it off or don't want to hear about it. It's a difficult thing because that permeates everybody. Everybody has mental health struggles, just some people are better at hiding them. Some people don't want to talk about them. Some people think they don't have them and they just push through life. But I feel like in this day and age with everything that's going on, the amount of war that's happening in the world, with the amount of election turmoil that's been happening, it feels very difficult to kind of like get through your day without being anxious these days. At least for me, I have a hard time doing it and I'm trying my best. to not have that be a thing, but it's just so difficult. I also wanted to say this kind of stuff to relate to other people a bit more, and maybe you can't relate to some of the things I'm talking about because it's very specific to like being a YouTuber. Maybe there are some people who feel what I'm saying, but just to anybody out there who is going through mental health difficulties, and what did it say in like 1/8 of the world has it, and the way the world is designed and the way the internet is designed and the way algorithms are designed and social media and everything, it's just really hard to not find yourself wading into negativity without realizing you're in it. So I just wanted to do this video to kind of like air it all out, say it's okay, it's fine. You're allowed to go through mental health struggles. It's okay to take breaks and time for yourself. It's not selfish. You would be shocked to know how many people are going through the exact same situation as you. There's stuff that I've never really talked about publicly, and I guess it's a good time to kind of like mention some things like being in a household that had alcoholism rampant in it. The talk of suicide, the act of suicide has been around in my family and my town and people I've known. Not only that, but having people in my family point guns at each other and say that they're going to kill someone and then take their own life is something that I thought was so specific to me, and talking about it at therapy and kind of like opening up a bit more about these kinds of things, you realize that no, it may be a bit more unique, but other people have gone through very, very similar things in their lives. And it feels good, at least to me, knowing that you're not alone, that you're not broken, that there's something not inherently completely wrong with you that other people will never understand, because they will. There's tons and tons and tons of people, unfortunately, who are going through other stuff as well, but who can understand what you're going through. And especially organizations like Samaritans and Crisis Text Line, they're also there for you if you need help, if you feel like there's no one to turn to. They have qualified people who can talk you through situations, and you may think, oh, I don't want to bother them. Oh, what I'm going through is not as bad as somebody else. Just please do it. If you feel like you need someone to talk to, there is someone out there that can listen, and that's why we're doing it. It feels like mental health is sort of the backbone of society and community, and it feels like it's being pulled at the seams right now. It feels like the threads are being undone. I'm trying to do something that reinforces the fact that there is positivity still out there, that we can battle through it, that we can wade through the problems of the world. And I've always said it, despite how difficult it may seem, that positivity and progress will always happen under the surface anyway. And I still hold that true. I still think that that's something that's been really important to me and something that kind of like helps me get through the day. So that's kind of it. I don't really know what this video is, but I just wanted to sit down and talk and just kind of like get thoughts out, but also to talk about Thankmas. December 6th, it'll be in person. We'll have 2 shows at the Orpheum Theatre in LA on December 6th. There's an early show and a later show. They'll be slightly different from each other, like they were last year. It will also be streamed, of course, but we have seats to sell, and I would love to see so many people at the show in person, because I'm trying to reinforce that idea of community and coming together and being in the same place as one another, and like seeing each other face to face and not just dealing with each other on the internet all the time, I think is a really big thing for this current climate that we're in. And I care very, very deeply about mental health, and I always have. I want to reinforce that. I want to raise awareness for it. I want to try and raise as much money as we can for it, to train more counselors for both of these organizations, and just try and make the world just that tiny bit better. We've raised $26 million, and I'm hoping that we can push it over 30 for Thankmas this year. And I think that goal is very achievable, and I can't wait to see what we're able to do as a community together. But not only ours, but everybody's. You can also sign up to do Thankmas yourself, any of your communities. If you go to thankmas.tiltify.com, it'll be in the description. You can sign up and make a page for yourself. Other YouTubers can do it if you're watching this. Other streamers can do it. It doesn't matter your size. It doesn't matter how much you want to raise. It's all going towards the same cause. So please go out, spread the word. Let people know that Thankmas is not only happening, that you can watch it and raise money for it, that you can join in and raise money for it if you want to with your own communities. You can come and see the show live if you want to with your friends or on your own. There will be tons of people that you can make friends with. Just please spread the word that it's happening. I want more people to know about that it's going on. And I feel like whenever these things are coming up, I don't talk about it enough, and then it happens and I'm like, here's me trying my best. I want people to sort of break down their walls a bit more and be more open and vulnerable with each other as much as you're comfortable. Thank you guys so much for listening, and I'll see you next time.